Hello, I'm Holly, or should I say I'm a goddess. So in June it is the Make Your Myth Taker Readathon, a readathon hosted by Ashley from A Frolic Through Fiction and Charlotte. They are the creators of Myth Take, a book club that focuses on retellings of myth and that kind of thing. And I've never really taken part in any Myth Take thing in the past, but when there was the opportunity to dress up and get into character, of course I wanted to take part. As part of this readathon, I believe that there are 16 characters and they all have like different prompts to fulfill. And obviously I'm doing my Game of Books as well in this video. I'm going to start with this, and then if you're interested in the books that I specifically chosen for the Make Your Myth Taker Readathon, they will be after this. But yes, it's Game of Books time again. I'm very, very excited. I know last month a lot of people were really enjoying it. I got quite a few new subscribers, so if you're new, hello. I hope you stick around. I hope you enjoy. For those who have no idea what this is my TBR game. It's how I decide what books I want to read in a month. And I started it last month. I'll leave a link to the first video in my description if you're interested in checking it out. But the basic premise of it is that I land on different colours, they represent different genres, and then I pick a prompt from a mug full of different prompts. And so for example I might have to do like a fantasy that is written before 2010 or something like that. Before we get into my roles for June, I thought I would just tell you about how last month went. My wrap up should be coming soon. I did pretty well. I'm not really going to go into specifics of what my TBR was last month because you'll see my wrap up. But at the time I'm filming this, there's probably less than a week left of the month. I actually have these two books left, and if you can see, they're really big. I've got Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb and The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon, and I've pretty much got the majority of these left. So I don't really think I'm going to be able to finish them all. I think I'm going to try and focus on finishing Royal Assassin because this is for the Elderling Along hosted by Becca at Becca in the Books. She's going through Robin Hobb's books and I think the live show is in like 2 weeks, so I really need to finish this. But that does leave Priory, and when I set up this game, one of my like punishments if I don't get to all the books is that I would pick a book from my TBR jar, which is most of the books on my physical TBR, like a random pick. So I am going to be trying to finish the Priory. I'll probably get it started this month and then I'll finish it in June. It's quite a chunker. This is my TBR jar, and let's find out my punishment book if I don't finish Priory. That's really funny. So I created this quite a while ago, and some of the books in here obviously I've read by the time I created this, and it is actually The Final Empire, which I read, was it last month? I read that pretty recently, so let's pick another one. Ooh, If We Were Villains. I think that's by M.L. Rio. I don't know that much about this, but I believe that it follows this group of theatre students who perform Shakespeare, and one of them is killed or something, and I guess you're trying to work out who the killer was. There's probably twists, turns. I've heard some fantastic things about this book. I'm very excited. I think this was a great book to randomly pick because it's one that I've had on my shelves for a while and I've been eyeing up, but I've just never picked up. So yes, that is the first book on my TBR for June. So then let's get into my Game of Books TBR. So my first role, like last month, I'm going to use this pom-pom to find my start position. I think, let's say the blue. Then my first role is 9. You can either go red, which is historical fiction, pink, which is a contemporary, a green, which is a sci-fi, another pink or a pink. So I think I'm going to go for a science fiction, and the prompt that I have for that is YA. So my first role for June was a science fiction that is YA, that is young adult, and I got a very, very exciting book for this, which is the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. I'm categorising this as science fiction. It's dystopian, and for me that kind of falls under science fiction, but I am so excited to read this. I've been seeing everyone posting reading vlogs and I didn't want to watch them because I didn't want to be spoiled, and I am very, very excited. If you didn't know, I reread The Hunger Games a couple of months ago. I think it was April, and I've got a whole vlog of me rereading them. And if you're interested in watching that, I'll leave a link in the description. I really loved filming that vlog. I was very emotional. I cried quite a lot, and some of those tears are on camera. I'm just like, I can't even contain the excitement. I love a good villain origin story. I love this world. I want to learn more about the capital and all these new characters, and I'm just like gonna burst. So that is the first book that I'm going to read. And then let's go into my second role. Okay, my second role is a 10, so we could do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Historical fiction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. A horror. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. A contemporary or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. A contemporary or a historical fiction. I think I'm going to go for a historical fiction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we'll go there. And for that, my prompt is a borrowed book. Second role, I had a historical fiction that was a borrowed book. Now, I really struggled with this because at the moment my library is closed, so I can't borrow any physical books, and they do have an ebook service, but I just don't want to read a book from my phone. I just do not think I will enjoy that reading experience. So I've decided that I'm just going to pick another prompt. It's my game, I can do what I like. There is a book that I really want to fit into this historical fiction prompt, and please be nice to me, mug of prompts. So what is it going to be? Okay, this is it. Over 10 years old. Okay, I don't know if you can see that. Over 10 years old, please. Yes! Yes! Outlander, published in 1991. This was the book that I wanted to read. In July, I was meant to be going on a holiday to Edinburgh, and I don't think that's going to happen anymore, but I still wanted to read Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. In Edinburgh, there was this whole Outlander tour that I wanted to go on, which featured the filming locations for Outlander, the TV show, and I think some of them are actual castles and stuff that feature in this book. This is a historical fiction following this woman called Claire. She was a nurse in the Second World War. The Second World War has finished. Her and her husband are going on this trip to Scotland. She ends up getting thrown back in time, where she meets this man called Jamie Fraser, who is a Highlander, and the Jacobite rebellion is looming. I absolutely love the TV show. That is why I picked up this book in the first place, because I just love Outlander. If you haven't seen the show, I would highly recommend it. It is just I just love it so much, and I'm so excited to finally get to this. And then if we go into my third role, role number 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. A historical. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sci-fi. 1, 2, 3, 4. A fantasy. I'm definitely going to go for a fantasy. And the prompt for that is, let's get one from the bottom. A under 300 page fantasy. And then my third role was a fantasy, and for this I picked a book under 300 pages, and I am cheating again because the book that I've picked I think is about 304 pages, and the last few pages are just some kind of poem at the end. I'm counting it, okay? It's my game. So for that I picked The Gospel of Loki by Jajuan M. Harris. I thought this was a really good book for reading during the Make Your Myth Taker Readathon month, because this is a retelling of Loki, the Norse god of trickery. I did pick this up because I love Loki in the Marvel films, and I don't know how close this is going to be to that. I don't know if I'm going to enjoy it. I've heard some mixed things. I know that Ashley really didn't enjoy this. I think she DNF'd it. But I've got high hopes. I really love Loki. I want to learn more about different types of mythology, such as Norse mythology and Greek mythology, and I just think it's going to be a lot of fun. It's quite a short read, like I said. I think, yeah, oh, it's 302 pages, so it's only 2 pages over 300. It still kind of counts in that small book prompt. And then let's get into my fourth role. And then my fourth role is a 6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
A classic.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Non-fiction or poetry.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
A classic or
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
a non-fictional poetry. I think I'm going for a classic.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
And for that, I'm going with this one. Please be kind. A recent release, which is from the last 2 years. Well, you see, classics don't really fall into that kind of thing, so I'm going to pick another one. An author surname A to M. For my fourth role, I got a classic, and the first prompt I got for this was a recent release, aka a book that was published in the last 2 years. The thing with classics is they're old, and that is why they're classics, which I just thought was hilarious that that prompt came up of all the prompts. So I ended up picking another prompt, and that one was author surname A to M, and for that I've picked The Odyssey by Homer, translated by Emily Wilson. I don't know if Homer is a first name or a second name, or just a name, but it's within the A to M, so it counts. The Odyssey is a epic Greek poem following this man called Odysseus, who has been at the Trojan War. I believe the Trojan War has finished, and he's trying to go home, and it ends up taking him 10 years because of all the things that happen on his journey. Ashley, again, really loved this book, so I thought it was a perfect time to pick it up. And then my fifth role, and then hopefully my last role. No, it's not. It's a double, and that is 8.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
You've got a horror,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
a fantasy,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
a classic,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
a rainbow square, or
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
a non-fiction,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
a contemporary. I really do need some more fantasy because there was some fantasy that I really want to read this month, but the rainbow squares are just so exciting. Let's go for a rainbow square.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
My rainbow square is randomly generated number. And for my fifth roll, I rolled a double, so I have an extra roll. And for this, I had randomly generated number Goodreads, which basically means I'm going to randomly generate a number, and then I'm going to go onto my Goodreads TBR shelf and find the book that is that number. This actually worked out really perfectly because one of the prompts to be a goddess is randomly generate a number, or like randomly pick a book. I have my computer here. I don't know how many books are on my Goodreads shelf. Let's have a look. There's 121, so let's do 1 to 1, 2, 1. Okay, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. Okay, 51. Oh! That's actually really cool. So it's the Archived by Victoria Schwab. Here I have the Dark Vault by V. Schwab. This is the Archived and the Unbound, the 2 books in that series. I'm only going to be reading the Archived, which is that much of this book. And this is a book that I've really wanted to read for a long time. I love V. Schwab. I've loved so many of her other books. I've also met V. Schwab. I'm wondering whether this is signed. Yes, so it's signed. Yes. Really excited to start a brand new series by her. I don't know that much about the Archive. It says each body has a story to tell, a life seen in pictures only librarians can read. The dead are called histories, and the vast realm in which they rest is the Archive. I'm very excited to get into this. And then my extra roll. A 6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Historical.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Fantasy.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Fantasy.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
A horror, or
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
contemporary. I'm definitely going to do another fantasy.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
For the final book on my TBR, my Game of Books TBR, we are going to pick Continue in a Series. This is absolutely perfect. And then my last role for the Game of Books TBR was a fantasy, and for this it was to continue in a series. And for this I'm going to be reading The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. This is the second book in the Mistborn trilogy. It follows this girl called Vin, who live in this world where the Dark Lord won, and because of this, life for the majority of people is pretty rubbish. And in this world, the magic system is based on metals. People can consume different types of metals to get different abilities. Most people can only control one, but if you can control all of them, you are a Mistborn. And it's basically a story of rebellion about trying to take down the Dark Lord once and for all. I really loved The Final Empire. I love Brandon Sanderson's writing. I think he's very accessible, and if maybe you're deciding whether to bridge the gap from, say, YA to adult, I think he's a good place to start. I know that his books are pretty long, but they have a really understandable writing style. I'm reading this for the Cosmere Along, hosted by Rachel at Rachel Marie, and I'm really excited to see how this story develops and where it goes. For the Goddess path, there are 4 prompts. The first prompt for Goddess is a non-human main character, and for this I'm reading The Gospel of Loki by Jajuan M. Harris. This is one of the books from my Game of Books TBR, and the main character is a god, which I just thought fit this prompt absolutely perfectly. The second prompt for Goddess is a foiled cover, and for this I'm reading The Odyssey by Homer, another book from my Game of Books TBR, and again I think an absolutely perfect book for the Goddess path. And then the third prompt for Goddess was the highest rated book on your shelf. And technically the highest rated book on my Goodreads shelf was The Way of Kings Part 2 by Brandon Sanderson. But obviously I'm taking part in the Brandon Sanderson Cosmere Along, and that one is not for a few months, and I don't want to have to reread it in literally like 3 months or something. So the second highest rated book is Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. This is the second and final book in the Six of Crows duology. I do believe there might be a third book coming, but so far it's a duology. This is the second one. This follows a group of 6 criminal individuals, and these 6 individuals have to go on this impossible heist. I really loved Six of Crows. I gave that 5 stars. It's one of my favourite books of the year, and I know that Crooked Kingdom is pretty heartbreaking. I cry at the tiniest things in books, so I'm gonna be destroyed. And then the final prompt for Goddess was to randomise your TBR, pick a random book, and of course I'm going to be reading The Archived by V. Schwab. This was my randomly generated number prompt in Game of Books. So those were my Goddess prompts, but you know, I was like, I want to read all the books. So I decided to pick another path. To be honest, I don't really love the character for this. If I could have picked something else, I probably would have. But the books I wanted to read fit really perfectly into this path. So it's the mercenary path. And that means that I'm going to be the goddess of mercenaries. The first book on the mercenary path is an anticipated read, and I'm going to be reading The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. This was the first book on my Game of Books TBR. I am incredibly excited to read this. I am anticipating it so much. And then the second prompt on the mercenary path is Weapon on the Cover, and surprise surprise, I'm reading The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. The third prompt on the mercenary path was featuring a magic battle, and I'm pretty sure that this book is going to feature a magic battle, and that is A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. This is the third book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, which follows a girl called Feyre, whose family are really poor, so she has to hunt to survive. One day she kills this wolf, turns out he's a fae. One of his fae friends turns up on the doorstep, saying she has to pay with her life. She ends up having to go and live in the land of fairy for the rest of it. By the time we've got to this book, things have gone down. And then the final book on the mercenary path is inspired by history, and for this I've picked Outlander by Diana Gabaldon, another book from my Game of Books TBR. So this is my massive TBR. Remember that I also have to finish Priory of the Orange Tree this month. What have I done? If We're Villains was my TBR jar pick because I'm probably not going to finish Priory this month. This is the stack of books for my Game of Books TBR. These are the 4 books for my Goddess path. And finally, these are the 4 books for the Mercenary path. I'm telling you now that there is no way that I'm going to read all these books. But you know what? I've got nothing else planned. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Are you taking part in the Make Your Myth Taker readathon? Have you read any of these books? What are your thoughts? Thank you for watching, and to everyone out there, stay curious. Bye!